Have you ever looked in the mirror and whispered to yourself, is this really me? Not the version you show the world, but the one that hides behind your smile, the one that knows you were meant for more. This isn't a story about success. It's a story about decision, about a quiet boy named Liam who once lived in the corners of his own life until the day he decided to rise. Not someday, but today. Liam wasn't a loud person. He didn't stand out in crowds, didn't speak much in class. Most days, he just passed by, a shadow in his own story. He spent his time in his small room, scrolling, watching, wishing. He followed people who had it all: clear voices, confident steps, perfect lives. He wondered, what is wrong with me? Why do they walk into rooms like they belong there? Why do I feel invisible? But one morning, something cracked. It wasn't loud, just a quiet ache in his chest, the kind that says enough. Liam opened his notebook and wrote one sentence: I want to become someone I'm proud of. And that's where his story began. At first, Liam didn't know what to do. He had no plan, no magic, just that ache and a decision. So he made a list, not a long one, just 5 small promises to himself. Wake up before the sun. Read 5 pages of any book. Say 1 sentence in English, out loud. Move his body even for just 10 minutes. Talk to one new person. Anyone. They were small steps, but they were his. And each morning, Liam woke up and faced his list. Some days, his hands shook. Some days, he wanted to go back to bed. But something in him whispered, do it anyway. And slowly, something changed. Not outside, but inside. He was keeping his word. It wasn't easy. There were days he failed. He skipped the list. He fell back into silence. But instead of punishing himself, Liam tried something different. He sat by his window one night and spoke gently to himself. I'm still learning, and I'm still here. That was the first time he didn't hate his own voice. Weeks passed. Liam noticed something. His back stood a little straighter. His voice didn't shake as much. And for the first time, he looked someone in the eye and didn't look away. Not because he was suddenly fearless, but because he had stopped waiting for the fear to leave. He walked with it. Then came a turning point. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The school was buzzing with students. Liam saw a flyer on the wall. Open speaking night, no experience needed. He stared at it. His palms sweated. His legs wanted to run. But he remembered the sentence he wrote. I want to become someone I'm proud of. And for the first time, he whispered back, then act like it. He tore the flyer off the wall, signed up, and showed up. The night of the event, he almost didn't go. He stood outside the door, heart pounding. His notes were shaking in his hand. Then a voice behind him. You okay? Liam turned. It was a girl from class, Nora. She was kind, soft eyes, the kind of person who listens with her whole face. I'm scared, Liam said honestly. I don't think I belong here. Nora smiled. Neither do I, but maybe that's the point. Maybe this is where we learn that we do. Liam nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The lights felt too bright, the room too quiet. But when Liam stood on that stage, he didn't try to be loud or perfect or impressive. He just told his story about the boy who was tired of watching his life from the window and decided to step outside. When he finished, the room was silent. Then someone clapped, then another. Soon, the room echoed with hands, not words, and Liam smiled, not because of the applause, but because he had done it. He had broken the shell of who he was to meet the person he was becoming. That night, he walked home slowly, chest open, eyes forward. He felt taller not in body, but in soul. At home, he sat on his bed and wrote another sentence. I walked through fear and I found myself there. This was just the beginning, because confidence isn't a moment, it's a muscle. It grows with use, to be continued. The next morning, Liam woke up before the alarm. His room was quiet, but something felt different. Not louder, not brighter, but clearer. He stood up, made his bed, brushed his teeth, and looked into the mirror. I'm still scared, he said, but I'm also still showing up. That was power. That was new. Days became weeks, and Liam started doing something he'd never done before. He challenged himself to grow, not because he hated who he was, but because he finally believed in who he could become. Each morning, he set 3 small goals, and each night he checked them off. He didn't always get them all, but he no longer judged himself for missing the mark. He simply adjusted and tried again. One Saturday morning, Liam sat with a notebook and wrote down something his teacher had once said. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing you can figure things out. That line stayed with him. It became a guide. So Liam did something bold. He started learning skills he had always avoided, not because he had to, but because he wanted to prove to himself that he could. He learned how to cook. At first, he burned everything. Twice, he filled the kitchen with smoke. But one day, he made a perfect sunny-side-up egg. And when he placed it on his plate, he smiled. Not because it was perfect, but because he had made it. Then he tried video editing. The first videos were awkward, choppy, full of mistakes. But he kept going, one video at a time. Eventually, he made a simple short film about fear. He posted it online, and then he waited. 1 comment, then 5, then 15. This helped me. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for sharing your story. Liam's hands trembled as he read them. His voice, the one that had been quiet for so long, was now helping someone else find theirs. That night he sat by the window and whispered, I'm not invisible anymore, not because the world suddenly saw him, but because he finally did. But growth is not a straight line. There was a day, it was a Monday, when everything fell apart. He had an English presentation in front of the class. He had practiced for days, but when he stood up, his mind went blank, his hands shook, and all he could say was, I forgot. The class was silent. Then someone laughed, just one person. But to Liam, it sounded like the whole world. He sat down, heart pounding, face hot, eyes wet. That night, he almost gave up. He wanted to throw away the notebook, erase the videos, forget the goals. "What's the point?" he whispered. "I'm still the same." But then he saw a drawing taped to his wall, a simple sketch he had made of a mountain, with these words written under it: "Climbers fall, but they don't live at the bottom." Liam stared at it, and suddenly he knew. Confidence wasn't about never falling. It was about getting back up. So the next morning, he did something powerful. He showed up to class early. He walked to his teacher and said, "I'd like to try again, even if no one's listening." His teacher nodded, and this time Liam spoke slowly, honestly. He didn't try to impress. He just tried to express. When he finished, the class was quiet again, but no one laughed. Instead, someone clapped, then another, and then Nora, who had been watching from the back, stood and said, "That was brave." Liam smiled, because it was. And brave is better than perfect. Always. Later that week, Liam noticed something strange. When he walked into a room, people started greeting him first. When he raised his hand in class, others listened. And when he sat at lunch, someone sat beside him. The world hadn't changed. He had. And the world was responding. He started a new journal. He called it version 2.0. Inside, he wrote, "Today I asked a stranger how their day was. Today I said no to something that didn't feel right. Today I spoke kindly to myself. Today I learned one new word in English and used it in a sentence. Today I walked like I belonged." Every page became a mirror, and the reflection was growing stronger. But Liam wasn't done, because deep down he knew the world doesn't belong to the smartest, or the loudest, or the richest. It belongs to the ones who keep showing up, even with fear, even with doubt, even with shaking hands, especially with shaking hands. Some people think confidence is about being loud, but Liam was learning the truth. Confidence isn't volume, it's clarity. It's knowing, even in your silence, that you matter. It's choosing your step, even when the path is uncertain. And in that season of quiet growth, Liam started doing something few people ever try. He rebuilt the relationship he had with himself. He began to notice the words he spoke inwardly, the quiet insults that slipped under his breath. "You're not good enough. You always mess this up. You'll never change." These weren't just thoughts, they were scars. Ones he had repeated so often, they became familiar. But now he caught them, and slowly, gently, he rewrote them. He started small. When he dropped a glass one afternoon, instead of calling himself stupid, he knelt down, picked up the pieces, and whispered, "I made a mistake, but I'm still worthy." When he forgot to speak up in class, instead of sinking into shame, he told himself, "I'm learning, and tomorrow I'll try again." And when he looked in the mirror at his reflection, not perfect, not polished, he said something that took every ounce of courage in his chest. "I am enough, even here, even now." That was the turning point, not the day he spoke on a stage, not the day he posted a video, but the day he spoke to himself with love. Because Liam had finally understood the voice inside your head is the one you hear the most, and it can either break you or build you. So he chose to build. One evening, after a long walk through town, he passed a group of people laughing outside a cafe. One of them called out, "Hey Liam, you're always so quiet, say something." It was meant to be a joke, playful maybe, but it cut deep, and for a moment, Liam felt the old urge rise inside him, to laugh along, to shrink, to pretend it didn't sting. But he didn't. He walked over slowly, calmly, looked the person in the eye and said, "I know you meant it as a joke, but I didn't find it funny. Please don't say that again." Then he smiled politely and walked away. Silence fell over the group, and Liam felt something new. Not anger, not pride, power, because he had just taught the world how to treat him, with quiet strength, with quiet boundaries, with quiet confidence. The next day, something strange happened. The same person messaged him, "Hey, I'm sorry about yesterday. You were right. I respect that." Liam smiled at the screen. He didn't need to prove anything. He had simply chosen to stop shrinking. As the months passed, Liam's life didn't become perfect. He still had fears, still had moments of doubt, still had days he wanted to disappear. But something was different now. He knew who he was becoming, and that knowing was unshakable. One Sunday, Liam went to a small bookstore. He picked up a journal with the words on the cover, "Write like your life depends on it." He bought it, and each day he wrote down one truth he was learning. Discomfort is not the enemy, it's the invitation. Every fear I face, I weaken its power. I don't need permission to be confident. I can be kind without being silent. I belong in rooms I used to fear. He started speaking more in his English class, not with perfect grammar, not with perfect accent, but with courage. And that was what people remembered. One day, his teacher asked him to stay after class. She smiled and said, "Liam, I've been watching your journey, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself now. Would you be willing to mentor some of the younger students?" Liam was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed softly and said, "I used to be one of those students." She nodded. "That's why they'll trust you." That night, Liam walked home under the streetlights. The wind was cool, the moon gentle, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like a shadow. He felt solid, real here. At home, he sat on his bed, opened his new journal, and wrote the sentence that had been echoing inside him all week. "This is the life I'm building, not by luck, but by choice." Then he added, "I am not who I used to be, and I haven't yet become all that I am." That was Liam's truth, and that can be yours too, because confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you train, one quiet, brave decision at a time. Liam stood in front of a group of younger students. Their eyes were wide, their hands fidgeted, their voices barely above a whisper, and he saw himself in every one of them. He didn't come to impress, he came to serve. So he didn't begin with rules, or steps, or a perfect quote. He began with truth. "When I was your age," he said softly, "I thought confidence belonged to other people, the louder ones, the popular ones, the ones who always seemed so sure." He paused. "I was quiet. I was scared. I stayed small because I believed that's where I belonged." And then he looked each of them in the eye. "But one day, I decided to stop waiting. I stopped asking for permission to grow, and I started building the person I wanted to become. The room was still. No one moved. And for the first time, Liam didn't feel like a boy with a story. He felt like a mirror, reflecting to others the truth they had forgotten about themselves. He saw a girl in the back with tears in her eyes, a boy biting his lip to hold something in, and another arms crossed tightly, leaning just a little closer. After the session, a student approached him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Do you ever still feel scared?" Liam smiled. "Every day," he said. "But now I know what to do with the fear." "What do you do?" she asked. "I walk into it," he replied, "even if my hands shake." That night, Liam walked home slower than usual. The stars were bright, the sky open. He felt something shift in his chest. Not pride, not even joy, something deeper, peace. Because now he knew the most powerful life is the one lived with intention, not performance, not perfection, but purpose. At home, Liam sat down and wrote what would become the final entry in his journal. "I have walked through fear. I have rewritten the voice in my head. I have stood in silence and found strength there. And now I am becoming the person I once needed." Days passed, then weeks, then months. Liam kept growing, not in a rush, not in a race, but like a tree, slow, steady, rooted. He kept learning, teaching, stumbling, starting again. He recorded his thoughts. He shared what he knew. He listened deeply to people who were still whispering, "Can I really change?" And each time he said the same thing, "Yes, but not someday, today." One evening, he was invited to speak at a community event. The room was packed. Many faces were unfamiliar, but he began the same way he always did, with his story, not polished, but real, not proud, but honest. And as he stood under the warm lights, he looked out at the sea of faces and said something that would stay with them forever. Confidence is not about walking into the room and thinking you're better than anyone. It's about walking in and knowing you don't have to compare at all. You belong, right here, right now. When the event ended, a man in the crowd approached him. He looked older, tired eyes, rough hands. He said, "I brought my son tonight. He's shy, quiet, just like I was. I think you helped him see himself." Liam smiled, held out his hand, and replied, "Then that means I did what I came here to do." Because that was the secret he had learned. Confidence is never just for you. It's a gift you grow so you can give it away, so others can rise too. That night, he returned home, looked in the mirror, and whispered one final truth: "I'm not finished, but I'm finally free." Then he turned off the light and let the silence hold him. And now it's your turn. You listening to this. Yes, you. Maybe your voice shakes. Maybe your knees do too. Maybe you've lived in silence so long, you've forgotten what your voice even sounds like. But I'm here to remind you, you don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. Willing to start. Willing to try. Willing to rise. Your story doesn't begin when you're fearless. It begins when you're tired of hiding. So today, I'm not asking you to change everything. I'm just asking you to do one brave thing. Say one sentence out loud. Look one person in the eye. Keep one promise to yourself. Speak one truth you've been afraid